The morning sun painted the crystal caves in shades of blue and silver as 8-year-old Minji crawled through the narrow opening her father had told her never to enter. The adults were busy with their important work at the mining station, and nobody would miss her for a few hours. She had been dreaming about these caves for weeks, and today she finally found the courage to explore them. Kepler-442b was not like the Earth her grandmother described in bedtime stories. This world had purple skies and 2 small moons that danced around each other every night. The ground sparkled with strange crystals that the grown-ups said were worth more money than she could imagine. But Minji did not care about money. She cared about the voice that called to her in her dreams. The cave tunnel opened into a vast chamber that took her breath away. Crystals covered every surface, glowing softly with their own inner light. But in the center of the chamber stood something that did not belong. Something that made her heart beat faster and her hands shake with excitement. It was tall, taller than her father and Uncle Hyunwoo combined. The shape looked like a person, but it was made of metal that seemed to shift and change color as she watched. Strange patterns covered its surface, lines that twisted and curved in ways that hurt her eyes if she looked too long. The thing had no face, just a smooth surface where a face should be. Minji stepped closer, her small feet crunching on the crystal fragments scattered across the cave floor. The metal person did not move. It stood perfectly still, like the statues in the colony's main square. But something about it felt different. Something alive. She reached out one small hand and touched the smooth metal surface. It was warm, not cold like she expected. The patterns under her fingers seemed to pulse gently, like a heartbeat. That was when she heard it. The voice was soft, so soft she almost missed it. It did not come through her ears but seemed to form directly inside her mind. The words were not in Korean or English or any language she knew, but somehow she understood them perfectly. The voice whispered. "You have found me at last." Minji jerked her hand back and stumbled backward. Who said that? Who is there? The chamber was empty except for her and the metal figure. The voice came again, gentle and warm, like her mother's lullabies. "Do not fear, small one. I have been waiting for you for a very long time." Waiting for me? But I just found this place today. I have been dreaming of you, little guardian. In my long sleep, I saw your face. I knew you would come. Minji's fear began to fade, replaced by curiosity. She stepped closer again, keeping her hands at her sides this time. "Are you alive?" "I am something between alive and not alive. I'm what your people might call a guardian. I was made to protect those who cannot protect themselves." "Protect from what?" The voice was quiet for a long moment. When it came again, it carried a sadness that made Minji want to cry. From the darkness that comes between the stars. From those who would hurt the innocent. From the ending of all good things. Minji did not understand all the words, but she felt the emotion behind them. This metal person was lonely, just like she sometimes felt when the other colony children did not want to play with her because she was too young or too small. "What is your name?" she asked. "I have forgotten my true name. It has been too long since anyone spoke to me. What would you call me?" Minji thought for a moment. The word came to her naturally, as if she had always known it. "Bogo, I will call you Bogo." "Vogo," the voice repeated, and she could hear the smile in it even though the metal face could not change expression. "That is a good name. It means guardian in your language, does it not? How do you know Korean?" "I know all languages, little one. It is part of what I am." Minji spent the rest of the morning talking to Bogo. She told him about the colony, about her family, about how the grown-ups were always worried about money and mining quotas. Bogo listened to everything, asking gentle questions that made her feel important and heard. When the sun reached its highest point, Minji knew she had to return before someone noticed she was gone. "I have to go home now, but I will come back. Tomorrow, will you be here?" "I will be here, little guardian. I will always be here when you need me." Minji ran home with her heart full of excitement and secrets. At dinner, she tried to tell her family about her discovery, but they were too busy discussing the day's work to pay attention. "Daddy, I found something amazing in the crystal caves today," she said, tugging on her father Dongsu's sleeve. "That is nice, honey," he replied without looking up from his datapad. "But you know you are not supposed to go into the deep caves alone. It is dangerous. But I found a metal person who talks to me. He says he is a guardian." Her older brother Jinwoo laughed. "Minji has an imaginary friend." "How cute. He is not imaginary. He is real, and he is waiting for me." Her mother, Soyoung, looked concerned. "Minji, you must not go into the caves alone. There could be unstable crystals or dangerous gas pockets. Promise me you will stay near the settlement. But Bogo needs me. He has been alone for so long." "Who is Bogo?" Dr. Haiwan asked, finally. "Paying attention, the guardian I told you about. He is made of metal, and he talks in my mind, and he knows all languages, and he has been waiting for me." The adults exchanged glances over her head. Dr. Haiwan set down her fork and leaned forward. "Minji, can you show us this metal person tomorrow?" "You want to see Bogo?" "Yes, we would like to see your friend very much." The next day, Minji led a group of adults to the crystal chamber. Dr. Haiwan brought her scanning equipment, and her father carried a portable light that made the crystals sparkle like stars. When they saw Bogo standing in the center of the chamber, Dr. Haiwan gasped and began taking readings with her instruments. "Incredible," she whispered. "The metal composition is unlike anything in our databases. The craftsmanship is extraordinary." Dongsu walked around the figure, examining it from every angle. "It looks ancient. Probably some kind of statue or monument left by whoever lived here before us." "Can you hear him talking?" Minji asked hopefully. Doctor. Haiwan shook her head. "I'm sorry, dear. My equipment shows no energy signatures, no active systems. Whatever this is, it appears to be completely inactive. But he talks to me." "Tell them, Bogo. Tell them you are real." The chamber was silent except for the soft humming of Dr. Haiwan's scanners. Minji felt tears starting in her eyes. "Bogo?" "Why will you not talk to them?" That night, alone in the chamber, she asked the same question. "They are not ready, little." "Guardian," came the gentle reply. "Their hearts are closed to possibilities beyond their understanding. But yours is open wide. That is why I can speak to you. Will they ever believe? When the time comes, when they truly need me, they will understand. Until then, I am content to have one friend who believes." And so began a friendship that would change the fate of worlds. 3 years had passed since Minji first discovered Bogo in the crystal caves. She was 11 now, taller and smarter, but still the only person who could hear the guardian's voice. Every day after school, she would make the familiar journey to the caves, telling Bogo about her lessons, her friends, and the changes happening in the colony. The settlement had grown much larger. More families arrived every few months, bringing new machines and bigger mining equipment. The purple sky was often filled with transport ships carrying precious crystals to distant worlds. Her father Dongsu had been promoted to senior administrator, which meant he was always busy and worried about things Minji did not understand. But lately, her father's worries were different. During dinner conversations, she heard words like territorial disputes and Thakari claims and military presence. The adults spoke in hushed voices when they thought children were not listening. "The Thakari Empire says this whole star system belongs to them," she heard Dr. Haiwan tell her mother one evening. "They have been sending scout ships to map our defenses." "What defenses?" her mother Soyoung asked with a bitter laugh. "We have 12 security officers with basic weapons. If they decide to take this planet by force, there is nothing we can do to stop them." Minji did not like the fear in her mother's voice. She did not like seeing her father stare at star charts late into the night, counting how many days it would take for human military ships to reach them. Most of all, she did not like the way the other children had started having nightmares about alien monsters coming to hurt their families. That night she told Bogo about her worries. "The grown-ups are scared," she said, sitting cross-legged in front of the tall metal figure. "They think bad aliens might come here and make us leave." "Tell me about these Thakari," Bogo's voice whispered in her mind. Minji repeated everything she had overheard. She told him about the scout ships and the territorial claims and how far away the human fleet was. As she spoke, she noticed something strange. The patterns on Bogo's surface seemed to glow a little brighter, pulsing in rhythm with her words. "Do not be afraid, little guardian," Bogo said when she finished. "Some promises are made to be kept, no matter how long the wait." Minji did not understand what he meant, but his voice made her feel safer. She fell asleep in the cave that night, and when she woke, she was covered with her favorite blanket from home. Her father found her there in the morning, and she got in trouble for worrying everyone. Strange things began happening around the colony after that. The first incident was small. Taeyeon, a boy from her class, was helping his father repair a broken mining laser when the tool suddenly started working perfectly. They had been struggling with it for hours, but overnight something had fixed the complex internal circuits. "Maybe someone else repaired it," Taeyeon's father said, but they both knew that no one in the colony had the skills to do such delicate work. The second incident was bigger. A pack of razor wolves, dangerous predators from the northern mountains, was found dead at the edge of the settlement. The creatures had been killed by precise energy burns that cut through their thick armor like it was paper. The colony's weapons could not make burns like that. "Maybe they fought each other," suggested Hyman, the head of security. But everyone knew that razor wolves never fought their own pack members. The third incident saved a life. Taeyeon was exploring an old mining tunnel when the ceiling collapsed, trapping him in a narrow space 50 feet underground. His screams echoed through the tunnels as rocks continued to fall around him. The rescue team said it would take hours to dig him out safely, but when they finally reached him, Taeyeon was sitting in a clear area, completely unharmed. He swore that a huge metal hand had pushed him to safety just before the biggest rocks fell. He described fingers as thick as tree branches and skin that reflected light like a mirror. The boy was in shock, Dr. Haiwan explained to the worried parents. Sometimes trauma can cause vivid hallucinations. But Minji knew better. That night she asked Bogo about what really happened. "The young one was in danger," Bogo replied simply. "I could not let harm come to those under my protection." "But how did you move? You have been standing here for 3 years." "I have been stretching, remembering how to use this body. It has been a very long time since I was needed." Minji looked at the guardian more carefully. In the dim crystal light, she could see that some of the patterns on his surface were definitely brighter than before. When she placed her hand on his chest, she felt a gentle vibration, like a giant heart beating very slowly. "Are you getting stronger?" "I am remembering what I am, little guardian. Your planet calls to me through the crystals. They are not just pretty stones. They are part of a network that spans this world, and I am connected to all of it." Dr. Haiwan started keeping detailed records of the strange incidents. She set up monitoring equipment around the settlement and in some of the mining tunnels. Every morning, she would check her instruments with a puzzled expression. "There are energy readings I cannot explain," she told Minji's father during one of their evening meetings. "Sometimes the equipment registers massive power fluctuations, but they do not match any known technology." "Could it be related to the crystal formations?" Dongsu asked. "Possibly. The readings are strongest near the deep caves, but every time I investigate, I find nothing but that ancient statue the children like to visit." Minji tried not to smile when she heard this conversation. More Thakari scout ships appeared in the outer system. The colony's long-range sensors detected at least 6 vessels, all heavily armed. They kept their distance but seemed to be studying human activity patterns and defensive capabilities. The adults held emergency meetings almost every night. Plans were made for evacuation procedures and for hiding the most valuable equipment if enemy forces landed. Children were taught emergency signals and safe places to hide, but the strange protective incidents continued. Equipment that should have failed kept working perfectly. Dangerous creatures stayed away from human areas. When a crystal harvester accidentally triggered a landslide, the rocks somehow missed all the workers and damaged only empty buildings. "It is like something is watching over us," young Taeyeon told his friends at school. "Like we have a guardian angel." Minji's brother Jinwoo, now 18 and part of the security team, was starting to notice patterns too. He began asking his sister questions about her daily visits to the caves. "You spend a lot of time talking to that metal statue," he said one evening. "What do you talk about?" "He is not a statue," Minji replied. "He is my friend." "Right, your imaginary friend who has been imaginary for 3 years. Bogo is not imaginary, he is just ... careful." That night, Jinwoo followed his sister to the crystal caves. He hid behind a rock formation and watched her sit in front of the tall metal figure, talking quietly as if she was having a real conversation. He was about to leave when something made him freeze, for just a moment, no more than a few seconds. He could have sworn he saw 2 glowing points of light where the statue's eyes should be, but when he looked again, there was nothing there except metal and shadow. The next morning brought news that changed everything. Long-range communications received an official message from the Thakari Empire. They were claiming ownership of the entire star system and giving all human settlers exactly 72 hours to evacuate. The war was coming whether they were ready or not. The Thakari fleet arrived like a storm cloud blotting out the stars. 13 massive ships dropped out of hyperspace and took position around Kepler 442b, their dark hulls bristling with weapons that could turn the entire human colony into glass. An ash within minutes, Minji pressed her face against the window of her family's apartment, watching the alien ships move across the purple sky like predatory birds. Each vessel was 5 times larger than the biggest human transport, and their twisted metal designs looked nothing like the clean lines of Earth-built ships. In the colony's main meeting hall, her father Dongsu sat across from War Commander Velkoth, the leader of the Thakari invasion force. The alien commander was nearly 3 meters tall, with gray skin that looked like stone and 4 arms that ended in clawed hands. His voice sounded like grinding metal when he spoke. "This system belongs to the Thakari Empire by ancient right," Velkoth declared, his translator device making his words understandable but no less frightening. "Your species has no claim here. You will remove all settlements and mining equipment within 72 hours. "Commander, we have been here for 8 years, Dongsu replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "We have established legal mining rights through the Galactic Trade Council. Surely we can reach some agreement." Velkoth's laugh was like breaking glass. "Your trade council means nothing to us. This world contains sacred burial sites of our ancestors. No other species may walk on ground made holy by Thakari blood." Dr. Haiwan leaned forward. "We have found no evidence of previous settlements or burial sites. Our archaeological surveys show no signs of past civilization." "Your primitive scanners cannot detect what you do not understand," Velkoth snarled. "The sites are here. That is all you need to know?" The meeting continued for hours, but everyone knew it was pointless. The Thakari had not come to negotiate. They had come to take what they wanted, and they had the firepower to do it. When the talks ended with no agreement, Velkoth delivered his final ultimatum. "You have 72 hours. Any humans remaining after that time will be considered hostile invaders and dealt with accordingly." That evening, emergency meetings were held in every building of the colony. 800 people had to decide whether to abandon everything they had built or face annihilation from an enemy they could not possibly defeat. "The nearest human fleet is 3 weeks away," announced Captain Minho, the highest-ranking military officer in the settlement. "Even if we sent a distress signal right now, help would not arrive in time. What about our defenses?" asked someone. From the crowd, Captain Minho's expression was grim. "We have 12 security officers with basic energy weapons. Our mining equipment could be converted into makeshift weapons, but against the Kari battle armor, they would be useless." "So we just give up?" shouted Taiyun's father. "We just let them take everything we have worked for?" "We save our lives?" replied Dongsu quietly. "Buildings can be rebuilt, lives cannot." But even as the adults argued about evacuation plans and refugee ships, Minji was thinking about something else. She was thinking about promises and guardians and voices that whispered in the darkness. That night, she made her way to the crystal caves despite the emergency curfew. The journey felt different this time. The crystals along the tunnel walls were glowing brighter than she had ever seen them, pulsing with rhythm like a massive heartbeat echoing through the planet itself. When she reached the main chamber, Bogo was exactly where he had always been, standing tall and silent in the center of the crystalline room. But something had changed. The patterns on his surface were no longer just glowing softly. They were blazing with brilliant light that cast dancing shadows on the cave walls. "They are here," Minji whispered as she approached her friend. "The bad aliens are here, just like you said they would be." "I know, little guardian," Bogo's voice replied, stronger and clearer than it had ever been before. "I can feel their ships poisoning the sky above us. I can smell the fear of your people. Everyone wants to leave. They say we cannot fight ships that big, and what do you say?" Minji was quiet for a long moment. "I say that you promised to protect us. But everyone thinks you are just a statue. They do not believe in you." "Belief is not required for truth to exist," Bogo said gently. "A star shines whether or not anyone is watching. A guardian protects whether or not anyone believes. But there are so many of them. 13 ships full of soldiers with big guns and armor. You are just one. Look around you, little guardian, really look." Minji turned slowly, examining the cave chamber with new eyes. For the first time, she noticed that the crystal formations were not random. They formed patterns, geometric shapes that connected to each other in complex networks. The light flowing through them was not just pretty decoration. It was information, energy, purpose. "The crystals are talking to each other," she whispered in amazement. "This entire world is alive with connection," Bogo explained. "Every crystal formation is part of a network that spans continents. And I am connected to all of it." "What does that mean?" "It means, little guardian, that I am not alone." As if responding to his words, the cave suddenly filled with a deep rumbling sound. The crystal walls began to vibrate, and Minji felt the vibration through the solace of her feet, traveling up through her bones and into her heart. "What is happening?" she asked, both excited and frightened. "I am waking up. Truly waking up for the first time in 3,000 years. And I am not the only one." Meanwhile, across the colony, strange things were happening. Dr. Haiwan's monitoring equipment was going crazy, registering energy readings that broke her instruments. Deep beneath the mining tunnels, workers reported hearing mechanical sounds. Like giant machines starting up after a long sleep, security cameras around the settlement caught glimpses of movement in the shadows. Huge shapes that seemed to be made of metal and light, moving just at the edge of vision before disappearing again. Jinwoo was on patrol duty when he saw it clearly for the first time. A figure almost identical to the statue in his sister's cave, but this one was moving. It walked along the settlement's outer perimeter with slow, deliberate steps, pausing occasionally to examine the defensive barriers with glowing eyes. When Jinwoo raised his weapon, the figure turned to look at him. For a moment they stared at each other across the darkness. Then the metal guardian nodded once, like a soldier acknowledging another soldier, and continued its patrol. Jinwoo lowered his weapon and activated his radio. "Command, this is Jinwoo. I need to report something, but you are not going to believe it." "Fry us," came Captain Ninho's tired voice. "I think my little sister was right. I think we do have guardians watching over us." "Up in orbit, War Commander." Velkoth was studying scanner reports from his flagship when his tactical officer approached with a worried expression. "Commander, we are detecting unusual energy signatures from the planet's surface." "What kind of energy signatures?" "Unknown, sir. The readings do not match any technology in our databases. They appear to be emanating from multiple points across all continents." Velkoth frowned. "Human defensive systems?" "Impossible, sir. The energy levels are far beyond anything in their technological capability. Keep monitoring. If the humans are trying to trick us with some kind of decoy system, they will regret it." But deep in his warrior's heart, Velkoth felt something he had not experienced in many years of conquest. He felt uncertainty. And beneath that uncertainty, like a cold wind from a distant grave, he felt the first touch of fear. The 72-hour countdown had begun, but the Thakari were no longer the only ones preparing for war. The final night before the Thakari deadline arrived with heavy rain and lightning that split the purple sky. Most of the colonists were packing their belongings, loading transport ships with whatever they could carry. Children cried as their parents told them they would have to leave their pets and favorite toys behind, but Minji could not think about leaving. She sat in the crystal cave with tears streaming down her face, holding Bogo's warm metal hand in both of hers. "I am sorry," she whispered. "I wanted everyone to believe in you, but they are too scared. Even my father says we have to go. He says no one can fight the Thakari and win." "Little guardian," Bogo's voice was gentle but filled with ancient strength. "Do you remember what I told you when we first met? You said you were made to protect those who cannot protect themselves. And do you believe that promise?" Minji wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "Yes, I have always believed you." "Then watch and see what belief can do." The patterns on Bogo's surface suddenly blazed with brilliant white light. The illumination was so bright that Minji had to close her eyes, but she could still see it through her eyelids like staring at the sun. The entire cave filled with humming energy that made her teeth ache, and her hair stand on end. When the light faded enough for her to look again, Bogo was no longer standing still. For the first time in 3,000 years, the guardian was moving, his head turned slowly to look down at her, and where there had been smooth metal before, 2 eyes now glowed like blue stars. When he spoke, his voice came not just in her mind but from speakers hidden somewhere in his chest. "Thank you, Minji," he said, and hearing her name in his deep, resonant voice made her heart soar with joy. "Thank you for believing when no one else would. Thank you for keeping me company during the long wait. Bogo, you can really move now. I can do much more than move." The guardian raised his head toward the cave ceiling as if he could see through solid rock to the enemy ships in orbit. "It is time to fulfill the promise my creators made long ago." The ground beneath their feet began to shake. At first it was gentle like the vibration from heavy mining equipment, but it grew stronger and stronger until loose crystals were falling from the cave walls, and Minji had to grab onto Bogo's leg to keep from falling. All across the planet, the crystal network was awakening. Deep beneath mountains and oceans beneath, forests and deserts, ancient machinery that had slept for millennia began to stir. Power flowed through crystalline conduits like blood through veins, carrying information and energy to guardians who had waited so long to serve their purpose. In the human settlement, people ran from their homes as the ground shook beneath them. Emergency lights flickered on and off, car alarms blared. Children screamed and adults shouted questions that no one could answer. Dr. Haiwan watched her instruments explode one by one as energy readings climbed beyond anything they were designed to measure. "This is impossible," she whispered. "The power levels are off the charts. What could generate this much energy?" Captain Minho was trying to coordinate the evacuation when Jingwu burst into the command center. "Sir, you need to see this right now." They ran outside together and looked toward the horizon. In the distance, silhouetted against the lightning-filled sky, massive shapes were rising from the ground. Figures of metal and light, each one taller than the colony's biggest buildings, standing up like ancient giants awakening from a long sleep. "How many?" Captain Minho asked in a voice barely above a whisper. "I count 12 visible from here," Jinwoo replied. "But the motion sensors are showing movement all across the continent." Up in orbit, War Commander Velkoth was no longer feeling uncertain. Now he was afraid, and the fear was growing into rage. "What are those things?" he snarled at his tactical officer. "Unknown, Commander. They appear to be some kind of automated defense system. Energy readings suggest they are powered by the planets. Crystal formations. How many?" The tactical officer's voice shook slightly. "Sensors indicate at least 50 active units, with more coming online every minute." 50. Velkoth's 4 hands clenched into fists. "No matter, we have superior firepower. An orbital advantage. Begin the bombardment. Turn that planet into a wasteland." "Sir, there are still human settlements down there. Not my concern. Fire all weapons." The Thakari warships opened fire with enough destructive force to crack a small moon. Beams of pure energy lanced down from orbit, targeting the rising Guardians with pinpoint accuracy. But when the light faded and the smoke cleared, the metal giants were still standing. The surfaces showed no damage at all. Instead, they had absorbed the energy from the Thakari weapons and were glowing brighter than before. In the crystal cave, Bogo turned to Minji one last time. "I must go now, little guardian. The battle is about to begin. Can I come with you? This is not a place for small humans, but do not worry. When this is over, I will return to you. Promise? I promise." Bogo strode toward the cave entrance, and Minji followed as far as she dared. She watched him step out into the stormy night, his metal body reflecting the lightning like a mirror. As he walked toward the settlement, his size began to change. He grew taller and broader, his limbs extending and reshaping themselves until he stood as tall as the other guardians she could see in the distance. The transformation was not just physical. Weapon systems emerged from hidden compartments in his arms and chest. His back opened to reveal rows of missile launchers. His hands reformed into tools of war that hummed with barely contained energy, but his eyes, those glowing blue stars, remained gentle when he looked back at her one last time. Then he turned away and began walking toward the enemy landing zones, where Thakari dropships were already descending through the atmosphere with 2,000 elite warriors. Ready for battle, the war was about to begin, but this time the Thakari would face an enemy they had never imagined. This time they would learn what it meant to threaten those under the protection of the Watcher's guardians. As Minji watched her friend disappear into the darkness, she whispered the words she had heard him say so many times. Some promises are made to be kept, no matter how long the wait. Tonight, after 3,000 years, that promise would finally be fulfilled. War Commander Velkoth led the landing force himself, confident that 2,000 Thakari elite warriors could crush any resistance the humans might offer. His dropships descended through the purple atmosphere like falling stars, their hulls glowing red-hot from atmospheric entry. The Thakari were the most feared warriors in 3-star systems. Their battle armor could stop energy weapons that would melt steel. Their plasma rifles could punch through tank armor. They had conquered 17 worlds and never suffered a defeat, but as Velkoth's boots touched the ground of Kepler 442b, he felt the earth trembling beneath his feet. In the distance, moving through the darkness with impossible grace, he saw shapes that defied everything he knew about warfare. "Form battle lines," he commanded through his comm system. "Prepare for contact with unknown defensive systems." His soldiers obeyed instantly, spreading out across the landing zone in perfect formation. Heavy weapons teams set up plasma cannons. Scout units moved forward to gather intelligence. Everything proceeded according to standard Thakari battle doctrine. Then Bogo stepped into the light. The Guardian emerged from the darkness like a mountain coming to life. 3 meters tall had been his resting size, but now he towered 4 times that height, his metal body gleaming with absorbed energy from the orbital bombardment. The patterns on his surface pulsed with blue fire, and his glowing eyes swept across the Thakari formation with ancient wisdom and terrible purpose. "Open fire," Velkoth commanded. Raising his own weapon, 2,000 plasma rifles fired at once, filling the air with deadly energy that could have melted a building. But when the light faded, Bogo was still walking forward, completely unharmed. The Thakari weapons had done nothing but make him glow brighter. "Impossible," one of the soldiers whispered. Bogo's response was swift and devastating. His right arm transformed into a weapon that fired beams of pure light, each shot precisely. Targeted, Thakari soldiers dived for cover as their supposedly invincible armor melted like ice in a furnace. The Guardian's left hand launched small missiles that moved like living creatures, seeking out heavy weapons and destroying them with surgical precision. But Bogo was not fighting alone. From the east came another Guardian, identical in design, but moving with its own fighting style. From the west came a third, and from the north a fourth. All across the landing zone, metal giants emerged from hiding places that no one had suspected. surrounding the Thakari force with overwhelming firepower. War Commander. Velkoth had fought in hundreds of battles, but he had never seen anything like this. These machines moved with intelligence and purpose that went far beyond simple programming. They fought like veteran soldiers who had trained together for years, coordinating their attacks and covering each other's movements. Fall back to the drop ships, he ordered, but it was too late. The Guardians had formed a perfect circle around the landing zone. There was nowhere to run. In the human settlement, people had stopped packing and were now watching the battle through windows and from rooftops. Explosions lit up the night sky like fireworks, but they were not random blasts of destruction. Each explosion was precise, calculated, designed to disable rather than destroy. They are not killing the aliens, Dr. Haiwan observed, watching through her binoculars. They could easily wipe out the entire landing force, but they are holding back. Captain. Minho nodded slowly. Professional soldiers recognize other professionals. Whoever built those Guardians understood the difference between defeating an enemy and slaughtering them. Jin was part of a security team that had been ordered to stay back and protect the civilians, but he found himself drawn toward the battle. Something inside him knew that this fight was personal, that his sister's friend was out there proving that belief and faith were not just childish fantasies. The tide of battle turned completely when the Thakari tried to call for orbital support. Velkoth activated his emergency beacon, requesting immediate bombardment of his own position to stop the Guardians. But when the energy beams came down from the warships in orbit, something extraordinary happened. The Guardians did not just absorb the energy this time. They redirected it. Bogo raised both hands toward the sky, and the deadly orbital strike bent around him like water flowing around a stone. The energy that should have destroyed everything in a kilometer radius instead flowed into the planet's crystal network, powering systems that had been dormant for millennia deep beneath the surface, factories that had waited 3,000 years for activation began producing new Guardians. Launch platforms hidden in mountain ranges opened to reveal defensive weapons that could reach into space. The entire planet was transforming from a peaceful mining world into a fortress that could defend itself against any threat. "This is impossible," Velkoth snarled, his confidence finally cracking. "No species has technology this advanced." "Commander," his tactical officer's voice crackled through the CUM system. "Long-range sensors are detecting similar activations on 12 other worlds in this sector. Whatever these machines are, they are not limited to this planet." The revelation hit Velkoth like a physical blow. The Thakari Empire had not stumbled across a single human colony with unexpected defenses. They had awakened something vast and ancient, a network of Guardians that spanned multiple star systems. As if to confirm his worst fears, new contacts appeared on his tactical display. Ships were emerging from hidden bases across the planet, rising through the atmosphere with technology that made Thakari vessels look primitive by comparison. These were not human ships. These were Guardian vessels, built by the same ancient race that had created the metal giants now dismantling his ground forces. The battle lasted 6 hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. By dawn, every Thakari soldier had been captured, or disabled. Their weapons were confiscated, their armor powered down, their dropships grounded by Guardian technology that simply turned off their engines. War Commander. Velkoth found himself sitting on the ground with his hands bound by energy, restraints he could not break, staring up at the Guardian called Bogo, who stood over him like a metal mountain. "Your forces are defeated," Bogo said, his voice carrying easily across the battlefield. "Your ships in orbit are surrounded by vessels they cannot fight. Do you wish to discuss terms of surrender?" Velkoth had never surrendered in his life, but he was not stupid. The alternative to surrender was the complete destruction of his fleet and the death of everyone under his command. "What terms?" he asked through gritted teeth. "Withdraw from this star system and never return. Spread word throughout your empire that these worlds are under the protection of the Watcher's Covenant. Any force that threatens the innocent will face the same fate as yours." "And if we refuse?" Bogo's glowing eyes dimmed slightly, and for a Moment Velkoth saw something that chilled him more than any weapon. He saw sadness, the deep sorrow of a guardian who had hoped never to fight again. "Then we will do what we were created to do," Bogo said quietly. "We will protect those who cannot protect themselves, no matter the cost." The war was over before most of the human colonists realized it had truly begun, but its consequences would ripple across the galaxy for years to come. 3 days after the battle, Minji sat in the crystal cave waiting for Bogo to return. The other guardians had gone back to their resting places across the planet, but her friend had not yet come home. She was starting to worry that something had happened to him when she heard familiar footsteps echoing through the tunnel. Bogo entered the chamber, but he was different now. His metal surface bore scorch marks from the battle, and he moved more slowly than before. When he sat down beside her, she could see that some of the intricate patterns on his chest had been damaged. "You are hurt," she said, reaching out to touch a blackened area on his arm. "I am functional," Bogo replied, but his voice sounded tired. "The damage is not serious. Why did it take you so long to come back? I had much to learn, little guardian. When the network awakened, I remembered things that had been sleeping for 3,000 years. I remembered who I am and why I was made." Minji settled against his side, the way she had done when she was smaller. "Tell me about the people who made you." Bogo was quiet for a long moment, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of ancient sadness. "They were called the Watchers. They were peaceful beings who loved art and music and learning. They explored the galaxy not to conquer but to understand, to meet new species and share knowledge." "What happened to them?" "They discovered that the universe is full of darkness as well as light. There are species like the Thakari who take what they want by force, who destroy anything that stands in their way. The Watchers watched 17 civilizations die while they debated whether it was right to interfere." 17 civilizations? Entire species wiped out by conquerors. Billions of innocent beings killed because no one was strong enough to protect them. After the 17th genocide, the Watchers made a choice that cost them everything. Minji felt tears starting in her eyes. What choice? They decided to become guardians themselves. They used all their technology, all their knowledge, all their life force to create the Guardian Network. They put their souls into machines that could fight when fighting was necessary, that could protect when protection was needed. They died. To save people they did not even know? They gave up their physical forms to become something greater. Every guardian carries the essence of a Watcher who chose duty over life, protection over safety. We are their final gift to the galaxy. The weight of this revelation settled over Minji like a heavy blanket. All this time she had been talking to someone who carried the soul of an ancient hero, someone who had sacrificed everything to protect strangers. "Are you lonely?" she asked, "being the only one of your people left?" "I am not alone," Bogo said. Gently, "I have you. And now I have something even more precious." "What? Purpose?" "For 3,000 years I waited and wondered if the Watcher's sacrifice had been worthwhile. Yesterday, when I stood between the Thakari and innocent humans, I knew the answer. Every life saved justifies what we gave up." Over the following weeks, Minji learned more about the changes happening across the galaxy. The Guardian Network had awakened on dozens of worlds. Not just Kepler 442b, ancient defensive systems that had slept for millennia, were now active and protecting developing civilizations from aggressive empires, the Thakari Empire, faced with the reality of guardians that could appear anywhere and any time, officially declared the Watcher Covenant to be valid galactic law. They withdrew their fleets from 12-star systems and signed peace treaties with species they had previously considered easy targets. Other aggressive civilizations received similar wake-up calls. The Korvac hegemony found their invasion fleet disabled by guardians who emerged from asteroids. The Zilari Dominion discovered that their slave trading operations were being systematically shut down by ancient protectors, who had suddenly decided to enforce justice. Dr. Haiwan became the human liaison to the Guardian Network, spending her days learning about Watcher technology and helping to establish communication protocols. Captain Minho worked with Guardian tacticians to develop new defensive strategies for human colonies, but for Minji, now 13 years old, the most important change was that adults finally listened when she talked about her friend. "You were right all along," her father Dongsu said one evening as they sat together watching the sunset. "I am sorry we did not believe you. You could not hear him," Minji replied. "Bogo says that not everyone can listen with their heart instead of their mind, and you could? I was lonely too." Lonely people recognize each other. The colony grew larger and more prosperous as word spread that Kepler 442b was under Guardian protection. Scientists came to study Watcher technology. Diplomats arrived to establish formal relations with the Guardian network. Trade increased. As shipping companies realized that Guardian-protected routes were the safest in the galaxy. With growth came new challenges. Some humans began to take the protection for granted, assuming that the Guardians would solve all their problems. Others worried about becoming dependent on ancient machines they did not understand. Minji found herself serving as an unofficial ambassador, helping humans understand that the Guardians were not servants or tools but partners in protecting innocent life. She organized meetings between Guardian representatives and human leaders, translating not just words but intentions and emotions. "The Guardians do not want to rule us," she explained to a gathering of colonial administrators. "They want to protect us while we grow strong enough to protect ourselves. Their greatest hope is that someday we will not need them." "And what happens then?" asked one of the administrators. "Then they will go back to sleep and wait for the next species that needs their help." Years passed, and Minji grew into a young woman who carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who had witnessed miracles. She studied xenobiology and diplomatic relations, preparing for a future where humans would take their place as protectors rather than protected. On her 16th birthday, she made a pilgrimage to the crystal cave where everything had begun. Bogo was waiting for her, as he always was, unchanged by the years that had transformed her from a child into a young adult. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked him. "Giving up everything your people were to become Guardians? Do you regret growing up?" Bogo replied. "Do you regret changing from the 8-year-old who first found me into the person you are today?" "No, growing up meant I could understand things I could not understand when I was little." The Watchers grew up too. We grew from a species that could only watch suffering into one that could prevent it. That growth was worth any price. They sat together in comfortable silence, Guardian and human, protector and protected. Friends separated by millennia of existence, but united by the simple truth that some bonds transcend time and species. In the distance, other Guardian figures could be seen moving across the landscape, eternal sentinels keeping watch over a world where children could play safely and parents could sleep without fear. The Watchers' promise had been kept, and their sacrifice had given the galaxy something precious beyond measure. Hope. As the sun set over Kepler 442b, painting the purple sky in shades of gold and crimson, Minji whispered the words that had become a prayer among humans throughout the Guardian-protected worlds. "Thank you for believing that we were worth saving." And in the crystal depths of the planet, the ancient network hummed with contentment, knowing that the long watch would continue until every innocent voice in the galaxy could speak without fear of being silenced.